Boston begins healing as investigators stand by to question the surviving bombing suspect about last Monday's attacks. As authorities continued their work today, many in Boston paused to remember the victims and reflect on what's been an overwhelming week in their city.
The horror of what happened drew a lot of people today, right to the very place, to the finish line of the marathon where those bombs went off. We begin our coverage tonight with Jay Gray reporting from Boston.
Sometimes there's a strength in simply being together.
People are going to have to band together and be with their loved ones and work through it by talking and feeling.
Hundreds from different faiths gathered near the blast site this morning, some whose churches were damaged in the attack, still resilient, but also, on Sunday, pausing to reflect.
It was shock, it was anger, it was sadness, because this is our city. You don't hurt our city.
Pictures of the victims framed an emotional mass at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross today.
This week, we are all scattered in the pain and horror of the senseless violence perpetrated on Patriots' Day.
And now as they come back with investigators finishing their work, the city is preparing for the crime tape and barricades to come down along Boylston Street.
Now today, it's time to move forward.
There is still heavy security at Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital, where marathon bombing suspect Dzhokhar Tsarnaev is in serious but stable condition. Investigators say one of his most severe injuries, a throat wound that's limited his ability to speak, could be the result of a suicide attempt before he was captured. We're also learning more now about what Tsarnaev did in the days just after the attack. Witnesses say he returned to classes at the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth, even attending parties before he disappeared on Thursday.
It's just weird that he came back after the bombings and then people saw him here. I don't know why he would do that.
It's a question that so many in this grieving community and across the country are asking right now. Why?
A special FBI investigation team hopes to get some of those answers if and when their suspect is able to speak. Jay Gray, NBC News, Boston.
Dozens of family members and friends gathered to say goodbye today to Crystal Campbell. The 29-year-old is one of 3 people killed at the bombing at the marathon finish line, and today a wake was held for Campbell at a funeral home in Medford, Mass. That's where the restaurant manager was raised. A private funeral will be held tomorrow. The older suspect, Tamerlan Tsarnaev, visited his father in the Russian Republic of Dagestan 6 months ago. Makhachkala is about 1,200 miles away from Moscow. NBC says the 26-year-old reportedly met with known extremists at a local mosque there, but family and friends say he did not meet anybody extreme or militant.
Now, if and when the surviving bombing suspect can communicate, an elite group of interrogators is standing by to question him about the deadly attack. Officials in our nation's capital want to strike a balance between getting the best possible intelligence and getting a conviction. Brian Moore continues our coverage from Washington, D.C.
As accused marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev recovers in a Boston hospital, Washington is debating how to handle his prosecution.
This man, in my view, should be designated as a potential enemy combatant, and we should be allowed to question him for intelligence gathering purposes.
The Obama administration has agreed to delay a reading of the suspect's Miranda rights under a public safety waiver, but it's rebuffing Republicans who are calling for a change in the prosecutorial playbook. The 19-year-old Tsarnaev became a U.S. citizen last year on September 11th, and he has the constitutional right to be tried in a civilian court.
Literally hundreds of terrorists, those accused of terrorism, have been successfully prosecuted and imprisoned in the United States using the same process that's being used in this case in Boston.
At the same time, lawmakers want to know a lot more about the suspect's dead brother. Tamerlan Tsarnaev traveled to Russia for 6 months last year after he was brought to the attention of the FBI as a possible Islamic extremist.
So we want to know why, after he was interviewed and after a foreign intelligence service raises a flag on the individual, why he was allowed to travel abroad and yet there were no flags put up on him overseas.
While law enforcement and intelligence agencies try to retrace the older brother's steps leading up to the bombing, all eyes are on Boston, where investigators hope they can get Dzhokhar Tsarnaev to talk soon. This case has added a sharp new angle in the debate over an immigration bill, and a few Republicans are calling for a delay. In Washington, Brian Moore, King 5 News.